always hands down my favorite. And we just welcome you all today and hope that you enjoy this as much as we do. But before I do that, I feel like it's important for us to acknowledge everything that has been happening for the past 2 weeks here. So Kids Managing Conflict believes that Black Lives Matter and stands as an ally with the Black Lives Matter movement. We are in support of all peaceful protests to bring attention to racial injustice, not for just for George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, but also for the unjust killing of unarmed Black people by police over time. Sometimes I feel hopeless and afraid that nothing will change. However, when I hear these young people that we support talk about what they have done and what they continue to do to create change in their schools, homes, and communities, I am reminded of the impact of peer mediation programs. We need unwavering and consistent attention to Black Lives Matter movement and never become complacent again. James Baldwin said, "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced." We believe that these students have the tools and the ability to change the world for the better. So thank you. And now we are going to move on to the fun parts here. So what I would like to do is introduce our Master of Ceremonies for the day, who most of you have probably met at some time or another. But I'd like to introduce Jason Harper. He is the founder of Harper Conflict Resolution, LLC. He specializes in education and employment mediation, utilizing a collaborative approach. Most notably, Jason is the ADR consultant for the LA County Office of Education, providing mediation and conflict resolution services to 18 school districts and 27 charter schools. He is a lecturer in law at the USC Gould School of Law and an adjunct professor of mediation at Pacific Coast University School of Law. Jason has been recognized by the California State Senate and the United States Congress for his mediation training. Jason was the 2017 president of the Southern California Mediation Association and serves on the board of directors for Kids Managing Conflict. His passion is teaching peer mediation and conflict resolution to students and faculty, as well as assisting in the creation and coordination of peer mediation program. Jason received his master's degree in negotiation, conflict resolution, and peace building from California State University, Dominguez Hills, and his mediation training from Loyola Law School in Los Angeles. Please welcome Jason Harper.
Thank you very much, Sally. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for those words. That definitely had an impact where I am, so I appreciate that. Welcome, everybody. This is the 8th annual Celebration of Peer Mediation, brought to you by KMC and the Institute for Nonviolence in Los Angeles, or also known as INVLA. This is a time of year where we shine a light on the youngest members of our mediation community, the future of our industry, and dare I say, the future of the world. Studies have shown that peer mediation programs have contributed to the improvement of empathy, language arts test scores, school attendance, safety, inclusion, reduction of bullying, suspensions, and expulsions. Today, you'll be able to have the opportunity to listen to peer mediators talk about the differences that these programs have made in their schools, as well as their own lives. Following that panel discussion, we will celebrate Heather Schon, who is the coordinator of the peer mediation program at the Palisades Charter High School. At this time, I'd like to introduce some luminaries in the field, starting with the Executive Director of the Institute for Nonviolence in Los Angeles, Ms. Avis Ridley Thomas.
Thank you, Jason. I really appreciate the opportunity for the Institute for Nonviolence in Los Angeles to partner with Kids Managing Conflict and the other organizations in support of this effort. USC's Good Neighbor program funds for the Institute for Nonviolence in Los Angeles a small grant to provide peer mediation at schools near its University Park and Medical Center campuses. Our partnership over the years with SCMA and Kids Managing Conflict has really enhanced the work that we do, and we most appreciate the opportunity to highlight students who are engaged in peer mediation training and a provision of program services. So this year we had parent training, which they enthusiastically embraced at one of our schools. So we anticipate doing more parent training next year. And we are delighted to have the other partners among us, that is the Western Justice Center, the Civic Engagement Program at USC they have in the past few years provided the venue and a nice meal for this particular effort. So we'd like to recognize that because they were planning to before we had the lockdown related to the pandemic. So thank you very much. And we expect to continue to support this effort. It is so important that we mentor and highlight young people who are doing the work of peer mediation throughout our region. So thank you so much for this partnership.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ridley Thomas. And yes, I'm very much looking forward to returning to the Galen Center next year. With that in mind, I'd like to now introduce and recognize the current president of the Southern California Mediation Association, that being Andy Shelby.
Thanks, Jason, and welcome everyone to a very special event that you're about to witness. If you're already familiar with KMC, then today's event will confirm your appreciation for what they do. If you're just becoming aware of KMC, then today's event will make you a believer in what they do. The impact that this program has on students, their friends, their families, and the community is just amazing. It's part of the building blocks for the future. We at SCMA are proud to be partners with KMC, and I look forward to today's activities. So thank you and enjoy.
Thank you very much, Andy. And at this point, I'd like to now introduce from INVLA, Ms. Jill Frank.
Hello, hi everybody. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here today with everybody in this new format. So thank you, Kids Managing Conflict, for getting us to make this, for making this happen. We, as Avis mentioned, generally go into 4 or 5 schools every year, and we're able to bring our peer mediation training to about around 150 students every year. This year we started earlier in the fall semester. We were with a class of high school leadership students at USC Media Arts and Entertainment High School. So that was 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. And we also were with a class of 3rd grade peer mediation students at Vermont Avenue Elementary School, they're fabulous, and they love it and they get it. After the winter break, we were all set to do our other 2 schools for this year, the parent training that Avis mentioned, which took place in East LA, and Alexander Science Center, a class of 4th and 5th graders. Now this class was very, very special because it was an elective. It wasn't a situation where the principal, fabulous principal, by the way, at Alexander Science Center, Miss Norma Spencer, it wasn't a situation where the principal said, okay, you know, Miss or Mr. 4th grade teacher, you're gonna come in and have your peer mediation. Peer mediation is gonna take place in your class. No, this was an elective, actually an elective for elementary school students. So all the students who signed up for this class chose, really, they truly volunteered. They weren't voluntold. They volunteered to learn how to resolve the conflicts of their peers. So we kicked off, we had a great in-person first class with a wonderful team of trainers, volunteer trainers from the Institute for Nonviolence in Los Angeles, and then boom, COVID hit, the pandemic hit, we went to online learning. And then we were challenged. We didn't know, in fact, if we would be allowed to do live classes, if we could do them on Zoom with our students who had been so interested. So we reorged, we thought about it, and we started to put together online lessons that could be used for independent learning, that the teacher who was helping us, actually psychiatric social worker, Miss Marina Delgado, I have to do a big shout out to Miss Delgado because she really helped us with the transition. Now we're all home, we're doing online learning. We don't know as an outside organization if we're going to be able to have access to our kids. And Marina made it happen. We created some online lessons that everybody started to be able to access and do some assignments, different types of things. Sometimes there'd be a video involved, sometimes a sort of an arts and crafts project, which could be done manually or digitally. And then we found out, okay, yes, we are going to be able to present our training in person to the kids. So had a fabulous class. People are very, very vested. And again, I want to really, really emphasize that this was completely voluntary. Now you have our students who are on their own time, and they are choosing once a week to come join our Zoom peer mediation classes. So with that, I can't thank you guys enough or give you a better, more positive, more enthusiastic introduction. But today, Jason is going to be talking with two of our wonderful 4th grade at Alexander Science Center, soon to be 5th grade, peer mediation students, Montserrat Castillo and Esteban Zerate. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Well, Esteban, Montse, it's so great to have you both on this panel. And I just want to take this time out first off to just, welcome you to the mediation community. And it's great to have you. It's great to have your energy. It's great to have both of your individual genius as a part of our collective. So with that in mind, I want to ask you both about your experience in the program that Ms. Frank described. And we're going to talk a little bit about some projects that you did. So Esteban, I'll start with you. Tell me what you learned in this program that you were a part of.
How to basically fix fighting, like to get people not to use, like to not do a conflict with violence. I mostly peace, so you don't have to do stuff that's not necessary.
Absolutely, absolutely. See, and you're learning from a young age that violence isn't necessary. So you're already on the right track, and I see a lot of potential there. Thank you, Montse. I'd love to hear from you. What was it that made you want to continue with the program?
That helps a lot of other people resolve conflicts, and that they don't have to use violence to fix everyday problems, like on the playground or wherever. You could just fix it using your words, and it helps a lot of people, which I like.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I appreciate to hear that. So, well, that actually brings us to a very, very interesting part of the panel discussion. One of the things that the both of you did were projects in this program. Montse, I know that you did what's called a conflict collage. And what I'd like to do right now is I'd like to have Ann Sawyer bring that particular picture up. And I'd love to hear you describe what it is that you put together, just for the people that are listening.
Yeah, that you could see there's a lot of pictures here that describe conflicts, and in this picture you could see a man and a lady screaming and yelling, and here you could see a boy getting ready to punch the other boy, and just discussing, two parents discussing, and two friends that got in a conflict and they're talking to each other, and that every person reacts differently to conflicts, but that's why you should always try to talk it out instead of using violence. and that you could kind of see conflict like a tug of war, because it just goes back and forth and nothing gets resolved unless you talk it out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that makes a lot of sense when you put it all together that way. Wow, I like it a lot. I like it a lot. It's very insightful, especially the fact that, you know, people approach conflict in different ways, like you said. So that's really well put together. I appreciate seeing that. Esteban, my next question for you, looking forward into next year, would you be interested in continuing learning about conflict and peer mediation?
Yes, I would like to continue because I mostly want to learn more because this year I wasn't able to learn that much.
Awesome, awesome. Monse, same question for you.
Yes, I'd like to continue because I'd like to learn more, and I'd like to help. I'd like to help out during my recesses at school when we go back.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I will say, you know, I think one of the big things about this particular program is that it's put together by the Institute for Nonviolence in Los Angeles, and obviously Jill Frank, who has done an amazing job working with these kids, as well as her co-trainer, Miss Denise Olive. We want to make sure that that both of them get deserved recognition for the work that they're doing and the impact that they're having on the students at that particular school at Alexander Science Center, as we can see from Esteban and Montse. Thank you all so much. I appreciate seeing both of you. I appreciate being able to hear from both of you. I look forward to seeing what comes next for Alexander Science Center, INDLA, and especially Esteban and Montse. Thank you both very, very much. Well done. Well done. All right, all right. So with that in mind, I'd like to move to our high school panelists, our high school mediators, and they're coming from the Pacific Palisades Charter High School. I say that 3 times fast. It's tough. It's tough. But with all that being said, allow me to introduce you to some of these amazing peer mediators, and we start with Ogechi Onyenechehe. Ogechi is 18 years old and recently graduated from Palisades Charter High School. She loves photography, watching Netflix shows, raising awareness about the water crisis, and of course, staying up until 4 a.m. In the future, she hopes to create her own successful business and give back to the people in need around the world. And oh, by the way, she is a mediator. Ogechi, thank you so much for being here and being a part of this program.
Thank you.
All right. And next we have Miss Morgan Korbanski. Miss Korbanski just finished her junior year at Palisades Charter High School and has been a peer mediator for all 3 years. What drew her to the mediation process was the fact that she believes that that people can solve most of the world's problems, particularly through mediation. And she feels that it's a beautiful process of expression, listening, being heard, respect, and moving forward with a stronger sense of understanding. She feels that if you were to examine pretty much any kind of problem, it can usually be attributed to the lack of presence of one of those factors. And mediation is such an important act of conflict resolution and finding peaceful solutions. Aside from being a mediator, she really enjoys music and has been a singer and songwriter for her entire life. And she also is an equestrian, working with and riding horses as much as she possibly can, and loving spending time with nature and her family. The great Morgan Korbanski, thank you so much for being here and being a part of this panel.
Hi.
All right, and finally we have Tobias Scott. Now Tobias spent the last 2 years, his last 2 years, as a peer mediator for Palisades Charter. And after his involvement in environmental activism and the JSA Student Government Organization, he also participated in oratory contests and also the peer mediation program. He has felt that the program helped him grow as a listener instead of a speaker. That's big. And he's now a rising freshman at UC Berkeley, where he will major in physics. And in his free time, he likes running and playing the saxophone. He is a mediator. Mr. Tobias Scott. Tobias, thank you so much for
Thank you, Jason.
being here. All right, all right. So let's talk. Let's talk. Ogechi, I'll start with you. What was it, just in your own words, in your own experience, that drew you to the peer mediation program?
Well, I had Miss Korbonsky, which is Morgan's mother, as a teacher, and she recommended me to the program. And starting from on then, we started doing training and getting more into. I remember you coming into our school and giving us like packets and just going, just reviewing them and having like mock trials. So during then, I was really in love with the program. I know for me, at first, I was very shy into actually being a mediator, but I think just throughout my like 2 years, I definitely grew as a listener and just speaking up about situations and just trying to solve and resolve things. So yeah, that's how I started.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I would like to add also that Ogechi is a really great example of how there isn't just one kind of person who makes for a talented mediator. I mean, I've known you for 3 years, and you know, you are a great listener and you deeply process what it is that you're experiencing, and there isn't just one sort of type of person. And you are a perfect example of that, because I've never seen anyone more deeply take in what we're looking to try to do and to be more open to the process. So I always remember that about you.
That's awesome. Thank you very much, Ms. Korbonsky. All right, and Morgan, question for you. You know, in your bio, you talk about, you know, all the different things that you see that mediation can provide from a conflict standpoint. What is one mediation in particular that you recall where you definitely saw that there was something that was missed that contributed to a conflict?
I've done quite a lot. Let me think. Like one aspect of mediation that wasn't being present.
Well, when you're in a mediation and you're seeing the conflict between students, you know, can you tell us of an example of when, you know, the communication just wasn't there, or the listening just wasn't there, or the understanding just wasn't there?
Oh yeah, I would say that there's been a lot, and I always say that a lack of communication is like pretty much at the root of most of the conflicts that I help mediate. And I mean, there was this one that happened, and a lot of it. Sorry, it's my cat. A lot of it to do with social media and how people are braver when they're hiding behind their phone screens, and how that just kind of enabled people to be bolder and be kind of not come from a good place with good intentions. And it took a lot of trying to get those people to listen and hear and look at the people that they had been sort of confronting over social media and like face the damage that had been caused. And so that's one of the times that's happened.
Absolutely. And I think that we're seeing a lot of conflicts exacerbated via social media. I think there's that anonymity factor. There's the, you know, the distance, which can create some cognitive dissonance where, you know, you're not really necessarily thinking about that person in the moment. And that can really serve to forget about, you know, people feeling the need to be heard and understood. So that's a very, very good point. Thank you very much, Morgan. Now, Tobias, same question that I wanted to ask you. Well, similar question. You said in your bio that, you know, you're really great with your oratory skills and speaking, but it's through the peer mediation program that you really learned how to listen. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, yeah, I think you really hit the nail on the head. I think that, you know, I was sort of told that sort of what it meant to be a leader was to speak a lot or to have other people listen to you, and that's sort of like the way leadership really occurs. But I feel like sort of what I've learned from spending so much time as a mediator is that listening to people has a more profound impact on them than telling them what to do. And, you know, you're more able to change yourself than you are able to change any other person. So when you use listening as a tool to help each person understand what it is that they need to do to resolve the conflict, I think it works better than telling anybody anything about what needs to be done. And so I think that mediation has really taught me the ways that listening is in a lot of ways more effective at creating change than speaking, because it allows people to sort of create that change from within.
Mm, that's a great point. Thank you very much. And Ogechi, I wanted to ask you, I wanted to come back to you and ask you a little bit about the school climate. Do you feel that, or how do you see peer mediation helping the school climate at Palisades Charter High School?
I think a lot of the times, like listening to the situations that have happened or during the mediation, it's just not being heard. Just having that one person ignoring how the other person feels. So definitely just miscommunication and the use of social media and how social media can create that like, I don't know the word for it, but just creating that gap of communication and listening to each other. So I think that's like what mediation has helped us during our process in Pali.
Mm, that's a very, very good point. And my final question for all of you, and if anyone has any questions in the audience, I'd love to be able to bring those to our esteemed panelists. One of the things that we're going through is a global pandemic, and with that, you know, we're home a lot more often. We're having to we're seeing each other less, and we're using social media more, whether it's for news, whether it's for socialization, or what have you. How do you see yourselves using your mediation skills in this new normal that we're encountering? And I'll start with Morgan, Tobias, and then we'll end up with Ogechi.
I would say that I've been using all of the mediation skills that I would bring to sit down mediation just in my everyday life, talking to my friends and my family. I think a lot of times it's easy to get frustrated when you're kind of cooped up in your house. And so you turn to your friends and you text them. And I actually have a friend that I'm really close with, but he can't really talk on the phone at his house. So we've been having to text, like do all of our conversations via text. And I've just been really making sure to let him know that I'm here and I'm listening and I am understanding and hearing him, because I think a lot of times it's easy to just feel like you're by yourself and no one's listening to what you're saying. And I think that's one of the most important aspects of mediation, is finally being in that space where you feel like someone is there to hear you and understand what you're saying, and that you're not just keeping it inside.
Yeah, that's a great point. Tobias?
I think that one of the most important parts of mediation in terms of the way it impacts people and helps conflicts get resolved is that a lot of people sort of feel a certain way or have a certain mental state or emotional sort of situation, and they don't always understand it. Like a lot of times I'll be upset, but I won't really know that I'm upset, or I won't really know why. And I feel like a lot of times you see that in a mediation where you'll ask somebody to talk about how they feel and why they feel that way, and it helps them understand themselves and their emotions better. So like I started journaling during this quarantine because it's such a time of disconnect. And so it's important to be in touch with your emotions in a way that I feel like comes through articulating them. And that's something I definitely learned in mediation, is the way that like expressing thoughts in words makes those thoughts and feelings a little more understandable and a little more concrete. And that's, I think, a great step towards resolving those.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Ogechi, same question for you.
Yeah, going back to what Toby said, I definitely have people and friends during this time when we're far away, because Pali, we have so many students from different zip codes. So it's very hard for us to communicate during this time. And so I feel like this is just a great time to just like reach out to a friend, making sure it's like to know how they're doing, how they're feeling, because it's definitely like easy to say that we're doing okay, but inside we're definitely going through the hardest moments of our life. And especially during this time when racism and racial injustice is just coming up, and just seeing so many videos and how people feel is definitely just a time to have like different conversations, even though it's very uncomfortable, but also just hearing to what people say, knowing how they feel. And I think like mediation and the skills I learned definitely helped me to speak my mind, but also to listen to other people say, to have those kind of conversations and interact and all that stuff.
Well, you hit the nail on the head, Ogechi, because that was going to be my next question. With the unrest that we're witnessing across the nation and the globe, you have people from Jerusalem to London, all marching, all protesting over racial injustice, and it's causing a lot of uncomfortable conversations and a lot of reflection on the part of a lot of folks. And so, at this time, how do you see your skills as a mediator coming to the forefront with these difficult conversations? Ogechi, you pretty much opened it up, so I'll leave it to Morgan and Tobias. So Morgan, starting with you.
I think that one aspect I've definitely seen myself exercising and using is, you know, that position that we've all been in a mediation where you have your own opinions and you form about which sides like you are leaning to, like this is definitely the side I would lead towards and this person's just not understanding. I would say that I've really had to exercise that right to listen to the sides of people who aren't understanding quite what white privilege is and are confused as to what the difference is between supporting a protest and supporting a riot and looting and attending a protest. And I've really been working to really explain and inform that side of things, why it's important to understand and be supportive of the side of people that have been put through torture for all of history. And I've been just really noticing myself trying my very best to inform people on all fronts as best as I can.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you. Tobias.
So I think that obviously this is a time where listening is more important than ever. And I feel like as we try to listen to the experiences and stories of people that face systemic racism and racial injustice, it's important to be able to listen to them and empathize with them in order to understand why we need to make change. And it's also important to understand that we're not going to be able to fully understand those experiences because we haven't been in them. So the ability to empathize and listen to people with a diverse range of experiences, including being the victims of systemic racism, I think is really important in creating change. And also, I think that when we see this many people want change, the change is really meaningful. Like when, you know, I feel like part of the reason mediation is really important is because it allows kids to make the change in those kids instead of having a punishment be doled out by the dean or whatever. And so when you have the society change the society, I feel like it's a more dramatic and more powerful change and movement. I feel like the fact that it's the people across the world, and especially in this nation, that are advocating for change, that change is going to be more meaningful than, you know, if any other institution were to try to change it. So I think change from within is going on in this country, and that makes me excited for the prospect of a more unified future.
You talk about a unified future, and hearing from the three of you gives me hope for that unified future, especially with the skills and the reflections and the experiences that you're talking about here. I want to thank all three of you for being a part of this panel, for being a part of this program, for the skills that you've learned, and for the skills that you're going to use as you go into adulthood. So thank you to Palisades Charter High School. You brought up, you know, another great group. I have to give you credit. You got another great group of mediators going out into the world, and so with each one, it gives me a little bit more hope and for the future. So thank you, Ogechi, Morgan, Tobias. You all have been amazing. I want to thank you again for your contributions. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Ms. Sally Patchen.
So thank you, all of you, for your just thoughtful comments. It is amazing to see just the maturity and thoughtfulness that you all put into this. So thank you very much. And that's a testament to Heather Schon, who has put together this awesome program at Palisades High School. So it is with great pleasure that we present the honorarium to Palisades Charter High School. I'll hold up the award that I'm going to be sending to Heather and your group. And also we have the check, which you cannot see. Oh, maybe that's a little bit better. It's the honorarium for $250 for best practices in peer mediation. So this says Kids Managing Conflict SCMA Education Foundation. This certificate for best practices in peer mediation is awarded by KMC to Palisades Charter High School with deep appreciation for excellence and commitment to peer mediation programs and peace in our schools. And so this will be coming to you very soon. And now I would like to introduce Heather, but first I want to tell you a little bit about her. Heather Schon has been a guidance counselor at Palisades Charter High School for 16 years, where she founded and coordinates the peer mediation and counsel programs on campus. Heather earned a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology from Long Beach State, a Master in Arts of Counseling from LMU, and a Master's in Negotiation, Conflict Resolution, and Peace Building from Dominguez Hills. We are alumni together. She considers the peer mediation program at Pali her greatest achievement, and I would totally agree. Congratulations and thank you, Heather. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Jason.
Yes, and I have the privilege of talking to Heather. Don't mind me. So Heather, let's talk. I've been seeing you from afar and up close for a number of years now, and I just am such a huge fan of the Palisades Charter High School and the work that you've done with their peer mediation program. So let's start from the beginning. What got you interested and involved with the peer mediation program at Pali?
Well, first I want to thank Kids Managing Conflict for the honor, and Holly Korbonsky, who's with us, because I couldn't have done it without her. And Sarah Crompton is also in the room somewhere, and she's been doing it with me. So thank all of you. So I think that the beginning, what started, I was in high school at Pali High, and I was actually involved with mediation back then. And my teacher, Russ Kitagawa, was this amazing man who really believed in me and saw something, and we got doing that. We did the mediation, and we did a lot of different things to help bring the groups together, because Pali's so unique. We have 110 zip codes, so it's a challenge to bring all the groups together. So I went to, he actually unfortunately passed, and I went to his funeral, and they were talking about how this was one of the best things he ever did. And we were like, we need to bring this back, because it would be a wonderful thing. And it really has been. It's been one of the best things we've ever done.
That's awesome. Now, tell me a little bit about any potential challenges. Was there any kind of opposition with resurrecting the program? What was that process like? Because I know there's quite a few people that are aspiring peer mediation coordinators that want to bring it to their school. What was some opposition, if any, that you had?
We're really lucky because we have a lot of support on campus by our administration. And even if somebody was a little hesitant, the second it started working, they were jumping on board and helping out and saying, let's bring this in. So in the time that we started doing mediations, the first year we did about 50, and it reduced discipline, reduced the referrals to the dean, reduced suspensions, expulsions. So then we had even more cheerleaders on campus, seeing like this is helping.
Yeah, so they were all seeing the results, and that just inspired them to just keep it going, and
correct.
That's great. So tell me a little bit about the training that you have your students going through.
Okay, so the first couple of years, we had the Asian Pacific Dispute Resolution Center come in and do the training, and they were wonderful. And Jason, you came in and sat and helped out. And then we train 30 students a year, and then we use them whenever we need, whenever we have a conflict. The first year, Holly was on a leave, and so it was just me, and that was the biggest challenge, was just taking time away from my job as a counselor to run the program. So I wasn't promoting it in a big way. The deans were mostly referring students, and we would have the mediations for those students. But it wasn't a big thing. Now they have lanyards, and now more people know about it. So
Yeah, well, that goes into the promotion of the of the group, the lanyards and all of that. And I've seen that at a couple of other schools, but I will say, in sitting in, you talked about the training program and how you had the APA DRC present doing that initial training. I was very impressed, not just with their training, but with the students that you had. And I want to ask you a little bit about those students, but I will say that my personal highlight of seeing that training with APO DRC coming to Pali was that the students were actually the ones training the older students, the seniors, were the one training the younger students as peer mediators. And so that was a personal highlight to watch, the knowledge getting passed down literally from one generation of students to the next. So that was really cool. But talking about those students, that brings me to this question: what kind of students are you looking for the peer mediation program?
We look for students that are leaders that people look up to on campus. We look for students who aren't going to be gossipy and, aren't going to get too involved with the drama, that have the demeanor to listen well and make an influence. We want, students in the room that the students in conflict achieve to be like, or to want to look up to. So you can see we picked really amazing students. All of these kids are wonderful. And the kids training the kids happened, the Asian Pacific American Dispute Resolution Center. I don't think they've done that before. They decided to try it because we have this remarkable group of students, and they worked with them and created the training program. And it was really neat having the students train the students. And then this year we lost the budget for the training. So we actually are creating the curriculum ourselves to train the students, which is unfortunate because we really love what they do. But
yeah. Well, I mean, and that goes to, the challenges of maintaining a peer mediation program, right? So, you talked about funding, and that's the kind of the evergreen issue or topic of conversation when it comes to maintaining a peer mediation program. What are some of the other factors that you're mindful of when it comes to maintenance of this type of program?
Well, just having the time. I mean, in the promotion of it, you have the concern with whether you can maintain it, right? So I still have a job as a counselor, Holly's still a teacher. So the more we promote it, I've trained more adults. Holly came back and did training, Sarah did training, we have Gio and Hoel that have all been trained. So now I don't have to supervise every mediation, and I don't have to coach every student. I can have other people sit in. So now we can expand and we can have more. And we have been able to expand. Holly actually was teaching a restorative justice class last year, which was really neat. But again, funding, we couldn't have her have an extra class. So we lost that class, which was too bad, but it's neat and we're hoping to get it back.
That's awesome. Holly, go ahead.
Hi, I'd like to sort of chime in that I think what Heather did was move forward with the kind of conviction that ended up showing everybody that they couldn't do it without her and the program. We have a dean who did a lot of restorative justice training and is very much on board with that. And, Heather often uses the phrase to hold space, for this kind of process to happen. And that's pretty accurate. I think people don't always know what it means. I think sometimes they worry that it means weakness. And then, luckily we've had some, long-term admins who did not assume that. And the proof kind of was in the pudding. And Heather was amazing with data, not my thing. She tracked that really closely. And the buzz kind of made its own gravy after a while. The kids would be in a mediation and they would say, what is this? What is this program? And it kind of, for a while there, it was looking really good when we had, the budget for that kind of thing. And I have hope that, it will happen again, because some of the kids who either were in mediation or were in the restorative justice class, have said, like, this is the greatest thing ever. Like, what is this kind of thing? They knew it was great before they knew what it was.
That's good. That's
Yeah,
really good.
and that's, especially now, because I'm gonna come back to you, Ogechi, that, it is clear that listening skills are kind of what is something that we haven't really nurtured. We think listening skills means listening to the teacher and then saying exactly what the teacher has said, and in fact, it's something completely different. And so, I'm hopeful that we're at some kind of a crossroads. And without Heather, like, refusing to be denied, I don't know what would have happened. But it's clear, especially right now, when you step back from high school and look at the sort of global situation, that that we're onto something here. And when I did take my leave and I had my own classes and stuff, I can't say what would have happened to the program, but Heather just wasn't having it. And
Yeah.
so I'm very grateful. She deserves this honor for sure.
That's awesome. Well, and that actually kind of brings me to the last question that I want to ask, or the floor that I want to give Heather. Two of the things that was mentioned during our talk just now. One is the tenacity. That's something that a person is going to need if they're going to do well and maintain a peer mediation program, because opposition comes in a number of different forms, whether it's funding, whether it's administrative buy-in, what have you, student buy-in. Opposition comes in a lot of different forms, but it's that tenacity that will get you through. But the second thing, and I want to give Heather the floor about 2 minutes to talk through, is you need help and you need support. And so, Heather, I want to give you the floor to lift up anybody that helped you make the peer mediation program at Pali what it is currently. So I give you the floor to shed some light on anybody that you felt was helpful.
I mean, I can't think of anybody who didn't. Like, definitely Holly and Sarah, for sure. They're always sitting with me making the plans on how to do this. And a few other teachers, Gio and Hoel, who went through the training and have been willing to step in when I need support. The admin all have been wonderful. Russ Howard was the one that initially was with me at the funeral and said, let's do this. And he's the one that kind of went to bat for it from the beginning. But all of the admin, the principal, and the rest of them have all been wonderful at supporting us. All of the deans who refer students first to mediation before discipline action often, which helps so much, because when students can resolve a conflict and get back to class, they're not missing that important education. And they're not, when they're suspended, let's say you get in a fight and you go home and are suspended, like, you're missing out on education. You're maybe afraid to go back to school because you haven't resolved the conflict. There's more dropouts. There's more, students going to prison than finishing their education. So it's like so important. So the dean's referring and believing in it, referring to the mediation instead of disciplining is huge, just globally. And then, all of the teachers who supported us, I mean, having the students to have to leave for a minute to go do a mediation, they miss that important lecture sometimes, but the teachers who believed in it and said, go, we'll get you caught up, this is more important, I really honor them. But mostly the students, because, I mean, all I do is coordinate. They are the ones that are doing the hard work, and they're the ones that are sitting across and making this happen. And as everybody said, like, they give hope for the future. If people, I wish everyone could learn conflict resolution as part of their curriculum.
Yeah, well, I will praise you for your humility, Heather, because you say that you just coordinate, but apparently you do a lot more than that, listening to the students, listening to Holly and so many others, and just in my own experience, just being able to watch from afar, you do a lot more than just coordinate. So, Heather, on behalf of Kids Managing Conflict and the Institute for Nonviolence in Los Angeles, we want to thank you for your efforts in making peer mediation, what it is today, and for your continued efforts in pushing it forward. So, Heather, thank you so much.
Thank you all. Thank you, Jason.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, and so what I'd like to do now we have hit the raffle portion of our festivities, and that brings us to the one and only Madeline Wall. Madeline Wall, could you please, announce some winners of some amazing prizes?